Good morning, everyone. Deshant, I have the privilege of leading McDonald's global offices in India and Mexico. And please note, I call them global offices, so I'll put a little bit context around why I did that as well. So I'm here to frame what McDonald's is trying to do, right? I'm sure a lot of people in this forum have questions around like, okay, GCC, very similar story, but let me frame it for you. But before I do that, I want to make it a little bit interactive, right? So I have yet to come across a single person who's not had a McDonald's memory, right? I'm sure all of you in some form or another from your childhood or taking your children or taking family have had some experiences. Can I ask this audience to give me some fun facts about McDonald's that you know? Anyone? Any fun facts that you're aware of? Happy Meal? Yeah, great. Anything else? Cheeseburger is not vegetarian, true. Sorry? Soft serves, yeah, it's great. So let me start by sharing with you some key facts, right, about McDonald's. So every single day, 1% of the world's population eats at McDonald's. So that's 70 million people who eat at McDonald's every single day. It's a big deal, right? 1% of the world's population goes into a McDonald's, either drive-through or is ordering online or is going to our outlets. We operate in 119 countries across the world. And we employ close to 2.2 million crew members who operate our restaurants, and they serve communities and our consumers. But more importantly, a couple of other fun facts. At a McDonald's drive-through, a customer is served in 3 minutes. That's literally less time than you and I take to order on an online app, right? So 3 minutes, somebody goes through a drive-through, gets an order. And maybe the last fun fact I'll share with you is the fact that there is something known as a Big Mac Index. Anyone heard of it? So the economists created the Big Mac Index, where the price of a McDonald's Big Mac is actually used to compare purchasing power of consumers across the world. So that's how is prevalent our products and brands are across the world. But when I joined McDonald's, one of the things I said, hey, you know what does McDonald's do? Sells burgers and fries. How difficult can their operating model be? And trust me, over the last many months that I've realized that it isn't as simple as that. We operate in 3 segments, as you can imagine, US being the largest. Of the 43,000 restaurants that was on the previous page, 14,000 of them are in US itself. We operate as what we call as internationally operated markets. These are where we actually franchise our operations. 90% of McDonald's is franchised, just for your information. And then we have the IDLs, right, which is about 75 plus markets and countries that actually operate through a DL partnership, similar to India, where we have Westlife and we have Connaught Plaza as 2 of our partners doing development licensing. But more important than this is the fact that we actually operate on a 3-stool model. So think about our employees. These are all the crew members and our corporate offices. Think about our suppliers, so people who actually supply our products, chicken, fries, potatoes. And then there's our franchisees, right? So which is, like I said, a big part of what we do. So that creates the complexity in the operating model that McDonald's does and operates globally. So what started off as, when our current CEO came in a couple of years ago, he said, listen, if you're going to grow at scale and pace and be competitive in the market, can we do that in the way we are structured today and how we operate today with our data, technology platforms, and how our people are structured? And the answer was no. So we embarked upon an initiative which is company-wide, which is called Accelerating the Arches. And this is about 3 things, right? 3 growth pillars that this focuses on. The first one is around leveraging our billion-dollar brands to actually create a more effective global marketing strategy, which is less about mass advertising, but more about emotional resonance. So how do you personalize, right, what we do across the markets, and how do we reach our consumers in a much more personal manner? The second thing is, we do not chase trends. Our focus is on our core product categories, which you can see there. which is around burger, chicken, and coffee. And that is where we will focus on, right? And we are obviously competing against a lot of specialized players in this. Think about, I won't name the brand, but you know who's the best one that we are competing against for coffee, or think about the ones that we are chasing for a chicken as a specialized category. And double down on our 4Ds. So think about delivery, drive-through, development, and finally, it's about digital, right? So how do we obviously enhance our online experience for our consumers as well? The reason we went through this and we said we are going to transform the whole company, and we call it modernizing McDonald's, is because we wanted to actually start to see in the next 2 years, if we were to grow by and add 10,000 restaurants to our 43 existing, how do we do it at scale and pace? So we said, all right, we'll do this in 3 big categories, right? We're calling them platforms. The first one is around consumer. So anything that touches a consumer. So today, if you have a McDonald's app and you open the app and you use it here, if you take a flight and go anywhere else and you start opening it, it will not work, right? So there is nothing you have to, like, there is no way that you can actually get that level of personalized service as you go around the world. The second thing is, how do we make our mobile more focused on loyalty? How do we make it, more focused on the ease of ordering? And that's where our consumer platform is going to play in. The second is our restaurant, which is basically, core to our operations. So how do we make it simpler for our crew and our managers to actually operate and really think about how we are doing this in the QSR space, and which is what we have pioneered. But there's a lot more that we need to do within that space. And finally, the company platform, which is the core infrastructure on which the company operates, our enterprise operates. 119 countries, very federated model, no structured data, not a single technology that we have. I mean, if I can tell you about financials, just our finance organization runs on 70 different ERPs. So think about, integrated planning. Think about how do we start to look at creating investment decisions. That's the one that we are trying to focus on by doing what we are working on within the company to unlock, obviously, a lot of innovation, but also in terms of looking at more decisive and faster decision making. So, so when I talked about this, right, so what does it mean? So one, it means is that we are going to have a single standard process. I mean, obviously, for those of you in the GCC space, probably will relate to this slide quite nicely. One is, how do we create gold standard processes that cut across? And if you think about our major functions like global people, HR, finance, indirects, that's what we are trying to do. The second thing is digitalize these processes, right? These are very manual, still a lot of Excel, still a lot of Power BI. So how do we take that into a digital cockpit where we can start to look at developing and enhancing some of that decision making talked about? The single truth of data is very interesting. I mean, as many other organizations have, we have data puddles, right? Not even data lakes. So we are trying to obviously consolidate all of that, and I'll talk a little bit about our AI strategy on what we're trying to do on data. And finally, this is about globalize our teams, right? So you heard about talent, right? And this plays more than just talent in India. This is about how do we articulate the value proposition of a globalized team back to the organization. It's not easy to do. I mean, organizations like McDonald's and several others have been outsourcing for a while, and so the model in the head is about sending work out and then getting it done, right? But it's not about thinking about globalization, thinking about getting better IP insight, and that's where we are trying to now play in that sandbox. So where does global offices mean? So when I said global offices, one of the things that I did when I joined, we were called a GCC or MCC, McDonald's Capability Center. So if you go back and anyone read up my legal entity name, it's called MCC India Private Limited, right? So that's because we set it up that way. But in December last year, we made a call, and this is where I sent an organization-wide email and communication to say, we will not be calling ourselves a GCC. We will not be calling ourselves an MCC. We are going to be called global offices in India and Mexico. And that's what we are. That's the brand that we carry. And the reason for that is obviously, one, We want to make sure that this team, and you'll get to meet the team members who are sitting across and outside at the kiosk, we want them to be extensions. In the truest sense, right? We hear about this a lot, but the only way we can do that is if we remove that mindset of saying, this is a team that's sent. The minute you say a center, the idea is you're sending work somewhere and you'll get work back, right? So to get away from that is like, if you were to, and I think Lalit called it out, like, it's just another office that we just set up in Hyderabad or we set it up in Mexico City. And to percolate that message down is the main purpose that we're trying to do. The second is, when I talked about those standard, gold standard processes, India, like these offices are the only ones which has the vantage point of actually being able to go back and educate the organization on how disparate your systems are and how much of redundancy and inefficiency there is. You can think about it, right? No other organization or no other location would have that. So how do we then bring innovative solutions? And the way we are doing this here is around not lift and shift, right? You heard about that term quite a bit. We are doing three things. One, we are going to be looking at creating new capability that do not exist, especially in global tech and our EDA space. The second thing we are trying to do is simplify, right? Is to create those gold standard processes, put them on one platform. And third thing that we want to do is to make sure that we are creating leadership positions who are going to lead those from here rather than just be order takers. And that's why the big challenge around that will be how do we create the one McDonald's way of working, right? So I can tell you it's not going to be simple. It's been obviously, think about 119 countries. By the time you reach the 119th country, life has changed, right? So how do we make sure that we are still not being consistent to the philosophy of what we are trying to do? And finally, this is about collaboration, and this is about building the culture, right? I mean, as McDonald's is very well known for its people-centric culture, right? A lot of organizations are as well. But here's where we want actually every person to have a career path and a development plan of what they want to do in the future. And by creating that capabilities that we are trying to do, this creates that ability and fungibility of talent to move across. So I'm very happy to actually share with you that we went live in Mexico. We are now setting it up in Hyderabad. We are making some great progress. But this is, the thing that actually, and this is where I think going back to the narrative that you heard about, back in March, our CEO brought 60 of his top CEOs to Hyderabad for 4 days. Now it's, think about the sponsorship and the commitment that an organization has to send a message across to the wild world and internally and externally to say, we are committed to this. And that's really important. And that has to keep happening because, the sponsorship, if it's not persistent, does not last. So that's the thing that we have been successfully able to do. We are, going to be a multifunctional site across both the location. We'll have, core capabilities. A lot of the work that we have outsourced outside, we will bring in-house because that's been, part of the strategy overall in terms of how we like to modernize and get some of the IP in. But it's been a journey, right? And we are just embarking on that journey and think about what the future holds for us in 2 years. So this is a place where we want to innovate. This is a place we want a great talent. And we want to agitate the organization to start to see what can you think apart from what you had. So most of the road mapping that you see right now is we have a point in time, we have X number of functions, X number of people. I want to see more capabilities being driven from here. I want to see the ability for us to influence and advise the company on what we can build for the future. That's the key thing that we have to do, and I think that's something that I would advise everybody to start to think. Just don't be a delivery center. It's so easy to go down that rabbit hole and just say, we're delivering for the organization. I'm very happy in my role. Everything is going great. You are going to plateau very soon. And that's what we are trying to see as to how we don't do that. All right. So a little bit on our consumer platform. Like I said, what we are trying to do is move to a cloud-native stack. We are trying to obviously reduce the number of code we have. But more importantly, what we want to do is actually to use one app across the countries, all countries. Right? You may go from Singapore to Mexico to Canada, and you have one app where we can tell you what your user preferences are, what you ate the last time, what we can recommend to you of what you should have, And basically not just for you, think about creating loyalties around it for you and your families. And how do we then start looking at communities, right, broadly outside of that as well? So there's a lot that's going on in this space. It's super exciting. And we are, obviously, our team in Mexico is doing a lot of this work on consumer side. And you'll hear a little bit more when, to my colleagues, Sharma and DP will talk a little bit more around what we are doing in the tech space. On the company platform, which is very close to my heart as well, because that's where bulk of the work that we from the global offices will be doing comes to life, right? And this is where, it's been very interesting for me because I worked with PepsiCo, I worked with American Express, two large organizations, and I thought very, very, effective, very competitive. Obviously for us, for example, we are the largest, restaurant chain in the world. How disparate, federated can you be? And what we have realized is it is fairly interesting. Just to give you a context, we don't have a single payroll system. 119 countries operate their own payrolls, right? So I can give you examples of several others, but what we are trying to do is think about our cyber, which is securing our arches. So everything on cyber defense, and you've seen, obviously, the number of breaches that are starting to happen. So that's a big initiative that we are trying to set up. Second one is around the enterprise platform. So think about all the ERPs that your organization runs on, payroll, employee services, financial operations. And then you look at indirect procurement and sourcing. All of that needs to come through into one platform and start to plug into the organization. So we are heading down that direction, right? We'll learn along the way, but I think the team here is going to play a very pivotal role on really redefining and recalibrating some of the things that we're trying to do for the future. So finally, this is about leveraging global services, which is what our organization is part of, and global tech coming together and providing value and affordability. Those two words are very core to what we do across McDonald's, and you'll hear that spoken quite a bit. So our idea is to basically start to look at how do we create that promise of value and affordability come to life from whatever work we'll do here and how we innovate. And finally, I would just ask you to please stop by our kiosk outside. We have a lovely looking kiosk that we built. Unfortunately, we could not get burgers and fries here, although a lot of you come and asked us for that. But it's to agitate your appetite so that you get that urge to go to an outlet or order online. But please come and spend some time with us to understand what we're trying to do and how these offices are playing a role. We love to interact and obviously learn from you as well. But thank you again so much for the time. I also want to thank ICI and 3AI for being partners with us. McDonald's is very excited to be part of this event. And thank you very much for your time.